Hello, everyone. In this episode, we're going to explore a book that has been a cornerstone in understanding the economy for decades. Basic Economics: A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell. This book is not just a textbook, it's a journey through the fundamental principles of economics, explained in a way that's accessible to everyone, whether you're a student, a voter, or just someone who wants to make sense of the economic world around us. So, why did Thomas Sowell write this book? Well, he noticed a gap between the complex, jargon-filled writings on economics and the need for clear, readable information that the general public craves. In his own words, learning economics should be as uncomplicated as it is informative, and that's exactly what he set out to do. This book is designed to make economics understandable, using real-life examples that stick with you, rather than abstract graphs and equations that can often feel disconnected from reality. Sowell emphasizes that every voter and politician affects economic policies, whether they realize it or not. We can't opt out of economic issues, so the only question is whether we're informed, uninformed, or misinformed when we make our choices. This book aims to make sure you're informed. Now let's talk about the fundamental principles of economics. Sowell argues that these principles are not hard to understand, but they are easy to forget, especially when we're bombarded with political rhetoric and media headlines. One of the key principles is the concept of scarcity. Scarcity means that there's never enough to satisfy everyone's desires completely. This is a reality that applies to every kind of economy, whether it's capitalist, socialist, feudal, or anything in between. Sowell uses the example of middle-class Americans who, despite having a standard of living that would be considered luxurious in many parts of the world, still feel like they're just getting by. This is because scarcity is a fundamental constraint that affects us all, regardless of our income level. It's not about how much money we have, but about the fact that there's simply not enough to go around to satisfy all our wants. One of the most fascinating parts of the book is Sowell's discussion on the role of prices. He explains that prices are not just numbers. They are messengers that convey important information about scarcity and value. For example, when beachfront property is expensive, it's not because of greed, but because there's a limited supply of such property, and many people want it. Prices help allocate these scarce resources efficiently. Sowell also highlights the importance of prices in a market economy by comparing it to the Soviet Union's experience. In the Soviet Union, prices were set by central planners, which led to inefficiencies and shortages. In contrast, in a market economy, prices are determined by supply and demand, which leads to a more efficient allocation of resources. This is because prices provide incentives for producers to supply more of what is in demand and for consumers to be more mindful of their consumption. Sowell argues that markets are incredibly efficient at coordinating the activities of millions of people without any central direction. This is because prices act as a communication network, conveying information about what people want and what resources are available. For instance, if there's a sudden increase in the demand for a product, prices will rise, signaling to producers to make more. Conversely, if there's a surplus, prices will fall, encouraging consumers to buy more and producers to cut back on production. This system is far more efficient than any form of central planning, as it relies on the collective knowledge of millions of individuals rather than the limited knowledge of a few planners. Sowell uses the example of the Houston supermarket that shocked Boris Yeltsin, illustrating the abundance and variety that a market economy can provide. Sowell delves into the consequences of price controls, using rent control as a prime example. He explains that rent control leads to a shortage of housing because it creates a gap between the supply and demand at the artificially low price. This results in people using more housing than they would otherwise, while others find it harder to find a place to live. Over time, rent control also leads to a decline in the quality and quantity of housing, as landlords have less incentive to maintain or build new properties. Sowell's analysis of price controls extends to other areas, such as gasoline shortages and the inefficiencies of government-controlled medical systems. He argues that price controls often lead to unintended consequences, such as quality deterioration, black markets, and a misallocation of resources. Another crucial aspect of the book is the role of profits and losses in a market economy. Sowell explains that profits are not just a reward for entrepreneurs. They are a signal that resources are being used efficiently. Conversely, losses signal that resources are being wasted and need to be reallocated. This system of profits and losses ensures that resources are constantly being directed towards their most valued uses. Sowell uses the example of companies like McDonald's and Intel, which have thrived because they have been able to adapt to changing consumer preferences and technological advancements. He also discusses the role of competition in driving innovation and efficiency, as companies strive to outdo each other in providing better products and services. Sowell emphasizes the importance of knowledge in economics, arguing that the efficient allocation of resources depends on the knowledge and insights of individuals. He contrasts this with centrally planned economies, where decisions are made by a small group of planners who lack the specific knowledge of local conditions and individual preferences. Sowell uses the example of J.C. Penney, who, despite starting with very little, was able to revolutionize retailing because he understood the changing needs of consumers. This illustrates the power of knowledge and the ability of individuals to make a significant impact in a market economy. In conclusion, basic economics is a powerful reminder of the importance of understanding the fundamental principles of economics. It challenges us to think critically about the policies and decisions that shape our world. Sowell's insights remind us that economics is not just about numbers and charts. It's about the lives of people and the choices we make. Thank you for joining me on this journey through basic economics. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of the principles that govern our economic lives. Don't forget to subscribe to the BrightLearn podcast for more episodes that will expand your knowledge and challenge your thinking. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.
Visit brightlearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.